The Hornets haven't made the playoffs since 2016. Their one season above 500 in that stretch came in the 2021-22 season, the same season in which they were again smacked in the play-in tournament and fired their head coach, James Borrego. There's reason to believe that that poor fortune and run of losing seasons could come to close by the end of this season. Major offseason changes, including 2 new starters and a new 6th man. Who those new starters and the 6th man are remain to be seen, but they're going to be new. And then there's the return of Hornets franchise center, the legend, Mason Plumlee. They also start the year with relative health, at least amongst their stars. Plenty of reasons for optimism in Charlotte. Not to mention the fact that the Eastern Conference this year is as weak as ever. So let's discuss the Hornets offseason moves and what to expect for their upcoming season. A key to the Hornets offseason, as it nearly is every year, was having a good draft and hitting on their high lottery selection. Whilst already having their star and future star on the roster in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, the Hornets selected the perfect complementary piece at pick 4 in Con Knippel. Knippel isn't some elite athlete that projects to be a future star, but what he does bring is a valuable NBA skill set that is certain to be a valuable complementary piece to Ball and Miller. Knippel proved in his 1 year at Duke that he can be an efficient and high-volume three-point shooter who projects very well as an off-ball scorer. His efficient, high-volume three-point shooting will provide great floor spacing for the Hornets offense, ensuring good driving lanes for Bridges, Miller, and LaMelo. When you consider that the Hornets have 0 shooting and floor spacing ability at the center spot outside of maybe some development from their new rookie, having floor spacing on the wings is crucial for the Hornets, which will be provided and aided by Con Knippel. Knippel also projects well in other facets of off-ball offense. Knippel has shown great instincts as a mover off the ball, whether that be to find the open space in a defense for open threes, or with cuts to the rim for easy buckets. He's also a good connective piece who can make the extra pass and pick out the right one whilst attacking closeouts. Defensively, he's likely never going to be great thanks to his limited athleticism and foot speed, but he can likely get towards being an average defender, which, given his ideal complementary offensive production, will still make Knippel a very valuable player for the Hornets. My next favorite selection for the Hornets this year was taking Creighton's senior big, Ryan Kalkbrenner. His foot speed is limited, but his skill set is very unique and potentially valuable for the Hornets. More on Kalkbrenner shortly when we discuss the massive changes in the Hornets front court over the last 12 months. The Hornets' other selections included taking forward Liam McNeely at the end of the first round, who could provide some more wing depth, especially whilst Josh Green and Grant Williams remain injured, and Duke guard Sion James, who may be the Nick Smith Jr. replacement, who was oddly waived at the end of September after being their late first-round pick only a couple of seasons ago. Now, historically, the draft selections have been the primary and sometimes only component of a Hornets offseason. But the Hornets stayed busy this offseason, starting with the changes in the backcourt behind LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. Only a few days after the draft, the Hornets made a low-cost move to acquire scoring guard Colin Sexton. Now, considering how little the Hornets had to give up to get Sexton, whilst also acquiring a draft pick, there's no way the Hornets can lose this trade. And at worst, the Hornets get a very productive scoring guard for the last season of his contract. Now I know I've framed Sexton through most of this video as being the 6th man, with Con Knippel being the starter, but there's certainly a world where Knippel moves to the bench and Sexton ends up being the starting 2 guard. At the time of writing, it's unclear what starter the Hornets will go with, and I wouldn't be shocked by either. I do think Sexton is the better option off of the bench, provided Knippel plays well, but that remains to be seen, and honestly, Sexton is probably more likely to be the starter. The addition of Sexton may feel redundant given the presence of LaMelo Ball, but then again, remember the availability we unfortunately continue to see from LaMelo. Having a high-level replacement for his offensive production at the guard spot is very valuable, and honestly at this point necessary to ensure a chance at a good season in Charlotte. Even whilst LaMelo is healthy, Sexton, either alongside him in the starting lineup or, as I hope, off of the bench as an offensive engine, is a dangerous option to have. Sexton's rim pressure would immediately be the best on the team, and his significantly improved three-point shooting in Utah would be another good three-point shooting option alongside Knipple. That three-point shooting will be very helpful for what was the third least efficient three-point shooting team in the league last season. He could certainly still be productive in the starting lineup alongside LaMelo, but the defense could get very ugly, and having Sexton run the offense for all of the non-LaMelo minutes is the best way to maximize the Hornets' offensive production. Not that they couldn't do that with starting both of them, but it's, of course, much easier to do with Sexton off of the bench. LaMelo and Colin Sexton is a great duo to have spearheading your offensive production from the guard spots. But re-signing Tre Mann this summer ensures the Hornets have some of the best guard depth in the league. Even in the scenario now where Sexton has to start full-time, either due to him starting at shooting guard or having to be the starting point guard due to injuries, now Tre Mann can still run the second unit, which is a great luxury to have. Sexton and Knipple will likely be battling for that starting perimeter spot, but at center, things are even more wide open after a chaotic 12 months in the front court. No one could have told you 12 months ago the three guys fighting for minutes in the Hornets front court. Those three guys going into this year are now the return of Mason Plumlee, the rookie Ryan Kalkbrenner, and what was 12 months ago at the time, the third center on the depth chart in Moussa Diabate. It's been a whirlwind of change at the center position for the Hornets over the last 12 months, so let's make sure you're all caught up on what has gone on in the mayhem that is the Hornets front court. The big bang chaos began during the 2024 offseason when the Hornets signed now potential starting center Moussa Diabate to a two-way contract. At that point in his career, Diabate had played only 33 relatively underwhelming games with the Clippers, all in pretty limited minutes. He, of course, ended up being converted to a standard contract last year with the Hornets and went on to play 71 games, but it signaled the start of chaos that has now resulted in him being the longest tenured center on the Hornets roster. Next up in January of this year was the Hornets moving off of backup center Nick Richards to the center-desperate Phoenix Suns. Richards had slowly developed from poor backup center to serviceable starter since being selected 42nd overall in 2020, but the Hornets decided to cash in and sell high instead of retaining Richards' services, which would have made sense if the intention was to retain Mark Williams as the starter and let Moussa Diabate grow into the backup role. But clearly, as we've seen, that wasn't the case. We then saw the first evidence of this at the 2025 trade deadline, where Mark Williams was traded to the Lakers for a package including 2024 first-round pick Dalton Knecht. Or so we all thought. A couple of days later, after the trade deadline, the Lakers did not like what they saw post Mark Williams' physical and were no longer willing to send as heavy a pick compensation to the Hornets. Due to the physical being done post-trade deadline, the details of the trade could not be changed as they typically can be as a result of a physical. This resulted in the Lakers no longer wanting to go through with the trade, resulting in a voided trade as a result of the physical. This kept Williams on the roster, heading back to Charlotte, having to travel back across the country, as did Dalton Knecht, and it signaled that the Hornets were clearly concerned about Williams' health long-term, amongst other things, and certainly did not want to give him a rookie extension as he became eligible for one during this offseason. Every single sign pointed to him being traded during the 2025 offseason. And that's exactly what happened. Apparently, the Suns just love Hornet centers, and so they agreed to trade for Mark Williams as he has now joined Nick Richards in Phoenix. And with that, it left Diabate as the only center of the three that were in the Hornet center rotation that began last season going into the 2025 season. Now only a year removed from being third on the depth chart and on a two-way contract, he is in a battle for the starting center role. Diabate certainly improved during his first season with the Hornets. His efficiency improved significantly, the defensive awareness and positioning improved throughout the year, and he showed great activity on the glass, especially offensively. Now, the lack of strength has been and may continue to be a problem. His 210-pound frame does allow him to have relatively good quickness and foot speed as a center, but it can cause issues on the defensive glass and in terms of post defense against bigger centers. But he's a fine, high-energy big. Now, having to rely on him as a starter, given his lack of strength, very limited offensive game with not great efficiency, and poor free throw shooting, is not ideal. But it's where the Hornets are at. The other threat to the starting center spot is rookie Ryan Kalkbrenner. Sure, he may have been a second-round pick this year, but Kalkbrenner is a 5-year college guy and a 4-year starter at Creighton who was all over All-American teams this past season. He's proven throughout his years in college that with his skill set and his experience, he will be as ready as any second-round center can be to immediately adjust to the NBA. One of the bigger knocks for the NBA with Ryan Kalkbrenner is the limited mobility and foot speed on the defensive end. He will likely struggle in most pick-and-roll coverages that aren't drop, which could make him be a bit of a liability defensively in any matchups that require him to defend near the perimeter. The upside? Nearly everything else, especially on the offensive end. At the very least, with his 7-foot frame and good size, he's going to be a very good rebounder on both the offensive and defensive glass. His finishing around the rim is very solid, with especially soft hands and good touch in the paint. He has the ability to hit the mid-range jumper on occasion, and has even shown some flashes from 3. I don't expect that to necessarily be a big part of his NBA game, but it is something he could occasionally flash and develop over time. Additionally, Kalkbrenner has pretty good vision and passing ability for a big. Don't expect him to become some offensive hub on the post or on top of the key, but he can certainly make the right read and will limit turnovers. He was the offensive go-to guy for Creighton last season for a reason, and was a big part of their offense the year before. He certainly has the skill set to produce offensively in many ways at the NBA level. At the time of writing this video, it is honestly very uncertain, and I'm also uncertain as to who will be the starting center for the Hornets between the two. Either way, I just don't see it as being that consequential. Neither of them is going to be getting 30-plus minutes a night, and I would expect them to nearly split minutes early on in the season as they battle for a larger role at the position. Then we get to Charlotte Hornets legend, their savior, Mason Plumlee. Oh, how I missed Mason Plumlee on the Hornets, and I'm definitely not ripping my hair out at the fact that that's a thing. This guy at this point in his career just stinks on the basketball court, and I hope that they trust the two young guys before leaning back on Mason Plumlee minutes in the year 2025. At least Clifford isn't behind the bench anymore to just give all the old bad vets minutes, which would mean Mason Plumlee would certainly be getting minutes this year. At least it's Charles Lee. And I really hope that there's enough in-season development from Diabate and Kalkbrenner, and that's at least fine and fun enough that the Hornets front court can survive, be fine at least, and that they don't have to rely on Mason Plumlee minutes in 2025. Please, I don't want to see Mason Plumlee minutes on the Hornets in 2025. With the improved backcourt depth, the addition of three-point shooting off the wing in Concaniple, and the chaos in the front court, the Hornets are at the very least intriguing and likely a better team this year than they were last year. The depth has improved significantly, and the young talent should continue to take a step forward this season, whilst Charles Lee should look even better as a head coach headed into his second season. The big hope is that Grant Williams and Josh Green can return from injuries quickly, as their wing depth and 3-and-D production is going to be crucial for the Hornets' success this season. And there it is. I tried to avoid it as much as I possibly could until this point. But it's the Hornets, man. The injuries are going to continue to be the key factor for them. If LaMelo stays healthy, as does the rest of their core, and Josh Green and Grant Williams return quickly from their injuries, I do truly believe this roster has the components of a team that should push for the play-in tournament this season. The issue is whether that health is at all possible, and recent history would indicate that it's probably not. I want to buy in on this team very badly. I've wanted to for years now. It is so much fun, promising young talent on the roster, and I do believe that they will still be fun regardless. But until they can prove that they can stay healthy, it is truly hard to believe in any success coming to Hornets basketball. Do let me know your thoughts on the Hornets offseason and their upcoming season. Thanks again for watching, and do be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed.